I cannot stand the look of lattice. I mean, come on, this is like the most pitiful thing I've ever seen. So let's get rid of this. And in today's video, I'm gonna show you how to build something that looks a whole lot better. Let's get right into it. So first, we gotta get the dimensions for our privacy screen. For the width, we're looking at just over 14 feet. And then for the height, we're gonna measure in a couple different places. And the shortest measurement is what we're gonna use, and that appears to be about 33¼ inches. And now that we have our dimensions, let's talk about lumber.
So here's a quick look at what we're actually building. I like to use 1x6 and 1x4 pressure treated lumber for these screens, and you want to use enough boards so that the total width when you add everything together is slightly less than the height of the area you're trying to conceal. In this example, 27 inches is less than 33, so we're all set. And because our total length is 14 feet, which is more than the standard 8-foot length of the boards, we're just going to be cutting the boards in half and doing 2 segments. And instead of cutting each of these boards individually like a bunch of peasants, we're going to cut them all at the same time by just stacking them all up, making sure they're even, and then clamping it at the end before marking the 7 approximate feet, and then taking it over to the miter saw and making the cuts all at once. This is just going to save a bunch of time.
And then just double check that you're all flush on the back before cutting, and then make your cut. 3 for 1. So we just cut the 1x6s, now let's cut the 1x4s.
And again, you can use all 1x6s, all 1x4s, a combination, 1x2s, whatever lumber you want.
And then we can make our cut.
And once we have our slats cut, we just need to mount them to the vertical support bracing. You could use 2x4s for this, but when I was purchasing the lumber, I found a bunch of these scrap pallet bases, and I'm just gonna use these as my braces because they were free. And yes, I asked if I could take them. And after cutting the vertical braces to the right height, I positioned the one on the end there, and then this one in the center is gonna be in between the 2 slat boards on either side. So it's basically gonna be mounted right in the center. To determine the spacing between each board, sandwich them all together and get that measurement. Then determine how many spaces you're gonna have. We're gonna have 5 spaces for our privacy screen. Then just confirm the height of your privacy screen. Then take the total height minus the length of all the boards sandwiched together. That gives us 6.25 inches, and you're gonna divide that by the number of spaces, which is 5 in our case. And that gives us a spacing of 1.25 inches between each board. And to make this easy, I'm just gonna cut a spacer that's 1.25 inches in thickness, and then I'm gonna cut that with the miter saw and then cut that in 2, so I have a spacer for both sides of the privacy screen. But first, we're just gonna attach the top and bottom slat, making sure that they're flush with the top and bottom of those vertical braces. And don't forget to split the difference on that center vertical brace. Once the top and bottom slats are secured, take that 1.25 inch spacer that we created, and then just push the next board into place and do this over and over again, making sure that your slats are flush with the outside of that vertical brace. Now I'm just using 1.5 inch exterior rated screws to secure the slats to the vertical braces. And after creating that first panel, I just wanted to test the fit, and after it looked good, I cut the other 1x6s and 1x4s and started building the other side. And while I build this second screen, let's talk about numbers. I'm sure some of you are thinking that lattice is commonly used because it's pretty cheap and it's actually less expensive than any alternative, but after buying everything, I'm not convinced, and I'm gonna do a detailed cost breakdown in my blog down below. And some of this 1x6 and 1x4 lumber can actually be quite warped, so make sure that you arrange it in a way where you don't have one board warping in and one board warping out. It's gonna make your whole screen look pretty crazy. And after securing the last few slat boards, I'm gonna cut one more piece of 1x4 to conceal this butt joint right down the center of the privacy screen, and then I'm gonna secure that in place using a few screws. And just for aesthetics, I'm gonna attach a 1x4 to the ends as well. And lastly, I just carried the privacy screen into place and secured it to my existing deck using a couple 3-inch screws. Here's a quick reminder of the space under my deck before the privacy screen, and here's how it looks now. I think it looks a whole lot better than lattice, but let me know what you think down in the comments. I think adding some stain to it like I did for my gable porch overhang would help a lot with the character, but for now, here's what we got. And as I mentioned, you can use 1x2s or different lumber to give yourself a different look like I did for my steps.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like down below. Consider subscribing if you like DIY content, and if you want to see how I built this deck, I'll link that video down below. Thanks.